Hashtag Trending is brought to you this week by Alyssa, A Tale of Quantum Kisses, the adventure novel that explores our future relationship with superintelligence. Just released on Audible, narrated by Hashtag Trending's own host, Jim Love. Also available from Amazon and Kindle. Search for Alyssa, Elisa, and Jim Love, or just go to elyssabook.com. IT failures shut down airports in Europe and the US. Nvidia invests $100 billion into OpenAI. Sam Altman admits customer service jobs will be the first to go to AI. Microsoft picks Claude over ChatGPT's next version for coding tools. And lawyers keep citing fake AI cases. And judges are losing patience. Welcome to Hashtag Trending. I'm your host, Jim Love. Let's get into it. Air travel was thrown into chaos on both sides of the Atlantic this week, but for very different reasons. In Europe, a cyber attack on Collins Aerospace disrupted its Muse software, the software that handles check-in and boarding at major airports including Heathrow, Berlin, and Brussels. Staff had to switch to manual processes, and that meant long lines, cancellations, and packed terminals. It's a clear reminder of how dependent European airports are on third-party software and how one breach can ripple across borders. But in the US, the cause wasn't a hack. It was a severed fiber optic cable that knocked out communications at the FAA's Dallas TRACON Air Traffic Control Center. A seemingly unavoidable situation, but critics were quick to point out that the lack of a failover was just another sign that America's aging aviation systems are more vulnerable to interruption. A recent government report warned that dozens of FAA systems are already unsustainable. We've covered this in the past. Some of their systems are still using what we once called floppy disks. And if you've never seen one of those, well, you know how old these systems are. But even though modernization is underway, some of these systems won't be replaced for 6 years or more. And that's if everything goes according to plan. For different reasons, on different continents, this week's breakdowns took us to the same point. We're deeply dependent on aging and often unreliable technology to keep key services like air traffic moving. And when that fails, the consequences ripple worldwide. Sort of makes you wonder about the other infrastructure in our digital age, but that's a story for another day. Nvidia is not just a supplier of GPU chips anymore. It's become a major investor. Today, it announced that it's putting up to $100 billion directly into OpenAI. That's on the tail of an announcement that it was going to buy up to 4% of IBM, again for billions of dollars invested. So here's the good news. OpenAI is expected to take that money and spend it on Nvidia hardware. And in addition to that, Nvidia does get a non-controlling, non-voting stake in the company. More on that later. But this all sounds so matter-of-fact, even though the scale of this is jaw-dropping. The planned data centers that this investment will run in are going to need, estimates are, 10 gigawatts or more of power. That's the output of 10 nuclear reactors. That's enough to power 10 large cities. So there's good news in one sense. That's billions in new capital flowing into U.S. infrastructure. And after Nvidia lost the Chinese market, this is a big win. They're locking down their role as the backbone of AI in America. So what will that do for jobs? Well, that's still an open question. See, data centers aren't large employers. A lot of them are highly automated. How much Nvidia can really move onshore from Taiwan and TSMC? That's another question. And there's another catch. In many U.S. states, the cost of building new power plants and grid upgrades isn't paid for by the data centers that use the power alone. It gets passed along to all of the users of the service. And that means that consumers and other businesses could see higher electricity bills to fund new generation and distribution to support AI's appetite for power. I heard a story this morning was already complaining that in New Jersey, power rates had increased by 22%. This could become a big ripple through the entire U.S. The overall expansion could run up to $500 billion in capital costs for this alone. And we're not sure yet, but it appears that OpenAI is still moving forward with its Stargate partnership with Oracle and SoftBank. And there's more. IBM has announced its own wave of AI infrastructure investments. So suddenly, Sam Altman's statement that trillions would be required in investment doesn't seem so fanciful after all. Even as some analysts warn that AI hype could yet prove to be a bubble, it appears that the largest tech players remain firmly bullish on the future of AI growth. And hey, have they ever been wrong before? But before we leave this, I have one big unanswered question. I get it that Nvidia is putting up $100 billion and that the money has to be spent on Nvidia chips. Good thing. But what is Nvidia getting for its $100 billion besides a customer? Reports are that this investment is non-voting stock in OpenAI. Now, $100 billion is a lot of money to have no say in the future decisions of OpenAI. And while that might be a short-term influx of sales for Nvidia, where else is OpenAI getting its chips from? I'm not saying that Nvidia has not made a good deal. I'm just saying when you can't understand the deals that are being made, it makes you wonder if you really are in a bubble. We'll keep our eyes open and bring you up to date. Find me 3 people who haven't heard that AI can hallucinate and that it's been caught making up legal cases. And based on what we seem to hear and see, I'll bet that at least 2 out of the 3 would be lawyers. We've all heard about these cases. In 2023, the New York case where lawyers filed a brief citing made-up decisions like Varghese versus China Southern Airlines and Miller versus United Airlines. Even Michael Cohen, when he was being sued by Donald Trump, had, in his high-profile defense, got caught using an AI-generated fantasy as a precedent. And the courts are getting, what's the technical term for this? Oh yeah, pissed. This month, California's 2nd District Court of Appeal fined attorney Amir Mustafavi $10,000 after finding that 21 of the 23 cases he cited in an appeal brief were fabricated by ChatGPT. These are not isolated incidents. In May, a federal judge in California ordered 2 law firms to pay more than $30,000 for using bogus AI-generated research, and the judge even admitted he nearly cited the fakes himself. Researchers tracking the trends say that when they started looking earlier this year, they found a few cases a month. Now, they're spotting a few cases a day across the U.S., Canada, the UK, and Australia. Now, what's astonishing isn't just that lawyers keep getting caught. It's how many still seem unaware of the risks. Seasoned lawyers are making rookie mistakes, even as their young associates say they feel pressured to embrace AI tools. But courts are finally now moving to set rules. California judges must adopt AI use policies by December, and bar associations are weighing changes to their code of conduct. Until then, as one lawyer who got fined put it, we're going to have some victims, we're going to have some damages, we're going to have some wreckages. But this is nuts. And it points to what might be a bigger problem. Doesn't the law and regulations change all the time? Aren't lawyers supposed to keep up? It appears that a lot of lawyers aren't keeping up with what's happening in their own profession. So it makes you wonder, for those of you who might ever be going into court, have the lawyers even read the cases they cite? If that's true, the problem isn't AI. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman says he's confident that customer service jobs will be the first to fall to AI. In a recent interview, he predicted what many of us already know, that most of today's call center and online support work will be handled by machines. Whether it's better or not is a question, but it's going to happen. And programmers are likely the next in line. Altman had a great phrase for this, a punctuated equilibrium moment. What that means is where job changes that usually take decades happen in just a few years. He softened his earlier predictions that human support would vanish entirely, saying that roles that required empathy, like nursing or counseling, may not go away. No matter how good the advice of the AI is, you still want a human connection, he said. But not everybody agrees. Some studies have shown that AI appears to have more empathy than doctors. But on the customer service prediction, the industry seems to be going with Altman. Oracle has already said it aims to automate all customer support, and Salesforce cut 4,000 live agents in the last year. So why are the analysts at Gartner, the largest advisory in IT, forecasting that by 2027, half of all companies will walk back their plans to shrink customer service staff, reflecting ongoing skepticism about AI replacing humans wholesale? Now, you have to take this with a grain of salt because Gartner, once the gold standard of technical advice, has its own issues. Its stock has fallen from $506 in September 2024 to $256 today. That's roughly a slide of 50%, in a time when the S&P 500 was up almost 17%. So which experts do you trust? The fact is, the future is absolutely uncertain. All we know for sure is that there will be change and impact. How much? It's a guess. But I keep coming back to the idea we don't need colossal swings. Remember, under COVID, unemployment wasn't 30%, wasn't 25%, it was about 12 to 13%, and it devastated economies and deficits rocketed. No wonder that Altman also admitted in the same interviews that the scale of change weighs on him. He says the ethical implications of hundreds of millions of daily AI interactions sometimes keep him up at night. Me too. And that's about the only thing that Sam Altman and I have in common. Final story, a big surprise. Microsoft's GitHub Copilot for Visual Studio Code has paying users using fill in the blank. No, Anthropic's Claude Sonnet 4 is the default model for many coding tasks, not OpenAI's GPT-5. An auto model selector will choose what Microsoft considers the best performer, and at least for now, Claude has the edge. Now that's incredible, considering Microsoft has poured about $13 billion into OpenAI. And you have to wonder, what's the logic driving this? Now, Claude was once the darling of the coding world. It still has a powerful following, but as a corporate data-driven decision. Public coding benchmarks like the SWE bench show that there's little difference between Claude and GPT-5. They trade places by a fraction of a percentage point. Despite that, Microsoft says its internal benchmarks show that Claude performs better, particularly on complex coding tasks over a long period of time. The catch is, those benchmarks aren't public, nor is there an agreed standard yet for testing long refactors or multi-file jobs. So all we can really say is Microsoft appears to like Claude better, which is okay. But voting against your own $13 billion investment? It's like if you heard someone from Teams say they're recommending Zoom. So how do you explain this? Well, the context makes it even more interesting. Earlier this year, there were reports of friction between OpenAI and Microsoft over governance and revenue sharing. There were tales of people yelling at each other in meetings, and OpenAI has been spreading its bets. We covered one of those stories earlier, signing major infrastructure deals with Oracle and now Nvidia. By leaning on Anthropic, is Microsoft showing it's got options too? Is this a data-driven decision and we just don't have the data? A smart diversification? Or a sign of a deeper strain? Or a negotiating tactic? All I can say is, it gets interesting. Watch this space. And that's our show. Thanks to all of you who've gotten in touch. It's always great to hear from you. You can reach me at technewsday.ca or .com. Just go to the Contact Us page, drop us a note. And as the new audiobook is launched, I'd be thrilled if you'd download it and give it a review. That's Elisa, E-L-I-S-A, Jim Love. Search for that on Audible, Amazon, and a ton more places. And as always, have a terrific Tuesday. And as always, have a terrific Tuesday.